And we have breaking news. Breaking news. George Kittle has just signed a 5-year, $75 million extension, says Ian Rappaport. George Kittle, who by all accounts became the number one tight end in football as soon as Rob Gronkowski went on to do The Masked Singer. George Kittle is a man who can block. He's a man who can change games. He's a man who seems to be the leader in spirit and everything in that locker room, and a guy who is absolutely hysterical. Iowa guy. Everybody thought he was going to get broken off. Nobody knew how much it was going to be for. Here we are, 5 years, $75 million. Congratulations to George Kittle. Congratulations to the 49ers who just extended Lynch and Shanahan. Now they lock down George Kittle for the foreseeable future. There's a team with Shanahan's big-ass brain that is predicated on the run game. You got a tight end who's an extension of a left tackle if you need him. Now they can drop the schemes. He can change games for you. This is a smart move. California taxes will take about 79% of that. But congratulations to George Kittle. Iowa guy, you got to feel good about that.
Yeah, I do. And you mentioned it. You can tell that he genuinely really loves football. He plays the game the right way. He's just fun to watch. I mean, no more guy is more deserving of this type of contract than Kittle. I love it.
He is a guy who loves football. And when he's mic'd up, you learn a lot about people when they're mic'd up, how they are in the game, what's their mentality. Russell Wilson, for instance, just Mr. Unlimited on the field. Hey, boys, here we go. Clear your eyes, full hearts. We're going to work hard. Here we go, guys. Okay, this is fun, isn't it? Football, fourth quarter. We got to make a drive. Do your job. Here we go. All right, this is the play. Do your job. Okay, I've never heard anybody like Russell Wilson on the field before. Any of the sports I've ever played, I've never had a teammate like Russell Wilson when he's mic'd up. Aaron Donald, whenever he was mic'd up, because he doesn't talk much, by the way. Aaron Donald does not talk. He's going to go down as probably a top 5 football player in the history of the game whenever it's all said and done. He's changed the position completely for whatever it is. People are going to be looking for next Aaron Donalds. When he was mic'd up, you got a chance to hear him literally self-motivate himself, right? He was doing a lot of talking to himself, like, come on, which, by the way, a lot of people do. George Kittle, when he's mic'd up, showtime. Mm-hmm. It is showtime off the field. It is showtime on the field. He's hilarious. He's relatable. And now he is wealthy as a mother. And I'm happy for him. I'm very happy for George Kittle with $75 million over the next 5 years. Now, granted, we're going to have to find out what the guarantees are, how this thing is structured. Nick Moraldo has more with that.
$30 million guarantees. So a lot of people are saying it's a 2-year deal for $30 million.
Okay, so he's averaging $15 million, I guess. Is that 5 times?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
5 times. Good math.
5 times 15, yeah, because you see what you do here with the math is 5 times 10 would be 50. Oh. And then there's 5 left. You can go 5 times 5, and you'd be like, oh, that's another 25. Mm-hmm. And then we got 575. Look at this big math show. Good for George Kittle getting broken off. What is that in comparison? It's the biggest in tight end history, right?
It's got to be because Hooper just had it, right? And
40 some million or something like that.
Like 13 a year, I think?
Yeah, 14 something. Yeah. And now, granted, Travis Kelce's going to be up here. Travis Kelce is watching this one with bated breath. He's already won a Super Bowl. He's part of the most effective offense in the history of the NFL, basically. Travis Kelce, George Kittle, obviously top of the class whenever it comes to tight ends. Now, Gronk's back in the game, and Madden gives him a 95. But Kelce's up here in like a year or two. He's looking at this like, hey, maybe we get an extendo. Nobody knows where this Chiefs money's coming from anyways. Go ahead and just throw some at Travis Kelce. Good for George Kittle. I'm happy for the guy.
Can they re-sign him? Like, do you think the Chiefs can somehow figure out a way to bring him back?
He's going to get broken off somewhere else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Travis Kelce is going to get broken off somewhere. And I assume that Kelce knows that as well. As soon as he sees the Patrick Mahomes deal happen and then all the other cap things that they happen, I would assume Travis Kelce's like, okay, we'll probably win a couple more Super Bowls here, and then I'm probably going to go somewhere else. But Travis Kelce is a massive piece of that Kansas City Chiefs offense. And you have to be able to respect that. And I think Andy Reid, they have big brain feature. They have big brains over there. But Travis Kelce's watching that going, okay, good news. Let's go ahead and keep it moving, boys. Patty, you got a $500 million, maybe a couple seam shots this year, a little bit more than we did last year. Let's see what we can get.
Is it surprising that he only got $30 million guaranteed?
I don't know.
2 years worth? Isn't that kind of surprising?
I don't know. We have to see how it's all structured.
Incentives and stuff like that.
Yeah, like there's roster bonuses probably in there too that aren't even being accounted for, because you got to remember the smoke and mirrors of contracts in professional sports have been happening for so long. It was laughable to get into the league and learn about how it all happens after watching like ESPN report these contracts. Boston Connor has just signed a 5-year, $770 million deal. Oh, good for Boston Connor. Good for Boston Connor. 762 million of that probably not attainable. He will have to cure certain forms of cancer to get, and he will also have to create the vaccine before Bill Gates does for COVID-19. But 770 million. Yeah, that's the big thing. You know, that used to be the big thing because these agents, they'd be able to sign more clients. The bigger the number get, the bigger the pop gets. So these agents would negotiate these deals that had these massive pop, headline grabbing. And then once you got into the details, you know, because the devil is right there in the details. Mm-hmm. And once you get in there, you're like, oh, that guy's going to get cut next year and probably make none of that money. But 150 million, like that is kind of how it's always been. So you have to see how this goes. But I would assume if George Kittle signed this deal, especially if you see his relationship with Shanahan and Lynch and what he means, I assume this is set up in a fashion where 30 million might be guaranteed, but there's probably a roster bonus that's rather large. There's probably some incentive-based stuff that he's definitely going to be able to get unless he gets hurt, and there's probably some other stuff with something.
Well, also he's only 26, right? So in 2 years you're 28. He's still in the prime, and he can re-up for even more money.
And by the way, 2 years from now, he's probably only going to be smarter, right? Because that's one of those things where a lot of people talk about tight ends and wide receivers, and I got a chance to watch Dallas Clark and Reggie Wayne. Okay, two guys that I wouldn't say this to Dallas Clark's face or Reggie Wayne's face, but other people have said this. They probably slowed down a little bit as they got older, but their brains were just so much bigger. And Drew Brees said this, I think last year. He said the art of getting older in the NFL is just trying to keep your body to hang on so you can abuse people with basically your new IQ that you have because you've been around longer. Reggie would do things because I had some friends that were corners on our team and they would have to go against him. And they would like come in after practice just like, man, how did Reggie do that? And I'm like, what does he do? And they're like, there's just little things where like he'll run a route. And he probably didn't do this whenever he was younger, but he wouldn't lift his hands until like the last second. So the DB had no idea the ball was coming, but Reggie had so much, and he would even like cut, and he wouldn't even be looking at the ball. And then like the last second, his hands would go out, and it's like, okay, here we go. That's the type of stuff that like younger pass catchers, and he'll probably learn even more about leverage. George will be there. Like the bigger your brain gets in those types of positions with those types of humans, the better you get. And Dallas Clark was a guy who, another Iowa guy, started as a linebacker, I think, in Iowa.
Yeah.
Played 1 year at tight end at Iowa. Then he goes on to become a part of the winningest decade in NFL history with the Colts and a massive piece of it, and never wore gloves. It made no sense. But like watching him operate whenever he got older, because that's the only time I saw him, it was just like everything about it. So yeah, let's assume George Kittle, this isn't his last deal, but it has to be nice to know that you're getting probably like, $7 million over the next 5 years with those California taxes.
And Garoppolo's going to get better. Like you mentioned guys figuring out.
There we go. And Shanahan's offense is going to get more.
Exactly.
I mean, this is good for George Kittle. I'm very, very happy for George Kittle at this point.